Hello again, we are back here at the second day of the Nordic Game 2015 conference. After a couple of false starts for the camera, we're ready to go and talk about our achievements today. George, Achievement 1, what have you done?
Achievement 1, I managed to go and see some talks from some South Korean developers who came over to Sweden as part of what can only be described as an exchange trip for businesses. So imagine that time when that French teenager came and stayed in your house when you were younger, and it's roughly the same, but with mobile gaming involved.
That sounds awesome!
It's not quite the same, obviously.
With fewer permission slips,
yes,
I assume.
fewer permission slips and more talk about mobile game monetization and slightly less talk about whether the French eat waffles all the time. But it was impressive, it was really interesting, but after that I then spent the rest of the day wandering the show floor, I guess.
I have seen you swanning about at these conferences. I'm never 100% sure exactly what you're doing.
Well, I think the term swanning about is fantastic first, but what I'm generally doing is I'm walking around the floor trying to find people who may come and speak at future Pocket Gamer Connect conferences. Okay. So we've got a few coming up this year. We've got one in San Francisco in July, we've got one in Helsinki, which is in September, and then we've got one in London in the new year. And what I'm looking for are some people who've got really fascinating, interesting stories to come along to the show, maybe talk about their experiences, perhaps their experience of a different market or working on a different game, and use that as a way of helping increase everyone in the industry's knowledge about mobile gaming as a whole.
Nice. Well, Alicia and I have been prattling about on camera.
Yes, we have. It's actually been so much fun. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been interesting, yeah, I suppose. But we've actually been trying to do some quasi-serious things. We talked to the guys who made Subway Surfers, who've got a brand new game coming out, the announcement of which will have just gone live as you watch this. It's called Blades of Brim.
Blades of Brim.
And it's another 3-lane autorunner, but they've put an RPG spin on it.
Yeah, which is an interesting, it's two very distinct genres, one incredibly saturated, the other probably RPGs are equally, I guess, saturated, and trying to jam them together
genres.
like two saturated sponges and see what comes out.
They were speaking about it in very enthusiastic tones, obviously, and I'm curious to see whether there is much life left in the 3-lane autorunner thing. They seem to have pepped it up. You can see the video on AppSpy, so there is game footage of it, and it's very good looking. Subway Surfers is quite good looking, but it is
beautiful.
It is that thing again, and we've asked this on the podcast before, like how much life is there in that match 3? That's the other genre. No, not that one. The 3-lane autorunner.
Well, I think people still enjoy these games, and I know that maybe for people who are really dedicated mobile gamers who are sort of super into their titles, that maybe we've all moved on from Temple Run, but I know plenty of people who still play them and love the fact that these games, they don't restrict you with timers, they don't stop you from playing. So if you're sitting on the bus, you don't build a load of buildings and attack once and then have to sit there for 10 minutes while the next thing comes up. Yeah. You get to play them again. But my concern about it is it's what you mentioned. It's about this RPG plus this, the 3-lane auto-runner genres. They're both overly saturated. And the people who like 3-lane auto-runners are probably not necessarily the people who like RPGs as well. And I'm wondering, and I'll be honest,
the Venn diagram overlap is
not that big. And I don't know if that overlap will be enough to make it a real financial success. But it could be. Who knows?
But then again, I think part of that is because a lot of people who play auto runners, it's the ultimate casual game. You often get people who aren't particularly gamers. RPGs is the land of people who have discovered gaming. Yeah. Maybe this is the bridge between the two. Maybe this is the way that casual gamers can discover RPGs and kind of, or just be introduced. I mean, obviously it's not a proper RPG.
So what you're saying is they switch from the casual lane runner lane into the RPG lane. Oh, that was.
I'm not saying.
It's been a long conference, isn't it?
Yeah, not making a full kind of suddenly becoming World of Warcraft style kind of game, but just RPGs are popular for a reason. There's that element of choice and customization which resonates well with everyone. I'm sure that casual gamers could be, if introduced to that in the right way, Blades of Brim could be an interesting way to do that.
Yeah. Well, while we've been doing our prattling about on camera, we've been trying to get a flavour of the event as a whole. It's a Nordic event. It's been taking place in the Nords, as I loosely call it. How much of that Nordic flavour have you felt? Because some conferences you go to and you distinctly are aware that, I'm in London or I'm in San Francisco or whatever. Here, I'm aware of it, but it feels very international.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the games that we've seen and a lot of the talks we've seen have been on a very international kind of global level. There was the Founding Fathers talk yesterday where we had the founders of Massive Entertainment and DICE and some incredible, we've seen Rovio running about. You've seen the big Nordic gaming giants, but on the whole, the talk has been with a very global focus. There's been a lot of games that haven't necessarily been celebrating the Nordic region because the Nordic region speaks for itself. It doesn't need to beat its chest and say, this is us.
They just point at Angry Birds.
Exactly, and say, look.
Oh look, there's King. That's what they do.
Well, but sorry to cut you off. You went to Bangalore, didn't you? And both of you did, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Which I didn't go to. How does it differ from something like this? What are the major things you notice?
Well, one of the things is, wherever you go in the world to a conference, there's always going to be an element of home advantage. But there's always going to be a certain number of people at that conference, maybe sort of 70% upwards, who are from the home territories. In this case, there were definitely a lot of people in attendance who were from the Nords. But the culture around here is a really strong sharing culture. People share ideas. I can remember talking to Finnish developers, talking about the fact that they were sharing game secrets with their arch rivals in coffee shops and in bars, because that's part of the culture. It's kind of academic. You don't just keep your ideas away, you go and share them with other people. So the Nords, in that sense, they're really open, and that's the reason why I think we get this friendly international feel. And I think Bangalore, that was definitely a friendly conference as well, don't get me wrong, but because it was one of the first major conferences in India, it was a lot more about getting the feel of a particular country, a particular territory that has been, I think we would probably agree after attending, unfairly uncovered.
Yeah,
so it's been overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, that's it.
And well, the thing with India as a region is that it's very difficult to get people who are up in Mumbai to come down to Bangalore and vice versa in all the different cities. There's a lot of the developers that we were talking to were saying that there is no chatting there's no kind of dispersion of ideas throughout India because the developers just don't meet. There is no opportunities, there's no events, the transport networks are quite difficult.
So why not
the money,
very insular little development houses?
Exactly, and it's kind of like bees and pollination. It's quite hard to get different ideas all around the country. So that was what was really exciting about Pocket Gamer Connects Bangalore. And so the conversations were very different to the conversations we're hearing here. The conversations there were about talent acquisition, how to build great teams, just designing itself, really interesting stuff related to India's infrastructure in terms of monetization, how they solve the free-to-play problem, mobile payments, things like that. Whereas here, that's already established. The Nordic region is one of the forerunners of kind of the mobile gaming world, and it doesn't need to have those conversations. So it's the next step. It's where are we going to take this now?
Well, me and George are going to be off in a bit. This is our last day here. You're staying on.
I am.
And you're doing an actual talk tomorrow, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
What are you going to be teaching the lovely people?
I'm going to be teaching the lovely people how to get journalists to cover your game without resorting to desperate measures like hitmen, threatening, kidnapping families, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's helpful.
That's good. Yeah, we don't recommend you do that.
Please don't ever do that. But yeah, no, I mean the idea is we get a lot of pitches as journalists, as you guys know. I mean, the average, there was a survey done, and on average, I think it's 50 pitches a day for each journalist, which adds up to 13,000 a year. So that's an awful lot, and that's a lot of noise for developers to shout through and try and see how they can get their game covered in the media, whether it's a review, just a news piece, a hands-on, a video. So I'm going to be going through exactly the ways that you can do that, whether you need to hire a PR agency or do it yourself, how to exactly write a pitch, and some of the more unusual stuff like creating a video, a gameplay trailer, just the stuff like including assets, all these things that people often fall down on, and that's the reason they don't get covered.
Gameplay video is more and more important now with everyone going to YouTube, increasingly so. But I've been asking me the same kind of questions, the developers I've been speaking to, and like, not to spoil your talk, but the quick bits of advice that we would always give if you are a developer wanting to get attention is like, one email, very short introduction about what the game is all about, embed pictures into the body of the email so we open up and we immediately see what your game looks like. Underneath that, a video, we can click it and immediately see it playing. Underneath that, if you've got it, a code, whether it's a test flight build or access to the game in soft launch or something like that, where we can actually sit down and play it. If we've got that small amount of information, your chances of being actually featured on something or of us being able to go, oh, that looks interesting, increase dramatically, because when you get 50, 100, however many emails a day, you just can't sit and read them all in full. And people send us entire documents and then FTP links to gigabyte files. Like, we're not downloading that. It's not going to happen. So make it easy on yourself. Keep it nice and short and sweet.
And the other thing is to think about some smart and innovative ways of maybe reaching out to new audiences. So I saw a developer today. I'm afraid I've completely forgotten the name of the game, but I will attempt to remember it soon. Yes, I know. I'm so sorry, everyone. But what was really interesting is that when you were playing the game, you could use a keyboard shortcut to basically put up the details of the game name and the company name in the bottom right corner. So if you think about Twitch streamers and you think about people working with YouTube videos, watermarking content is a real pain in the backside for a lot of people. And so what they've done is basically created this option for people who are playing the game and streaming it and who want to be attributing it properly, just to basically go, I think it's Control L, and there you go, pops up. And that means that can help them really tap into that YouTuber Twitch streaming audience, because it just saves a little bit of time. And it's a really small but smart idea. And if you can think up a few little things like that, then you never know, you might just get that little bit of an edge.
Well, if you are interested in what the conference has felt like, you can check out yesterday's diary if you haven't already seen it. There are also several videos up on PocketGamer.Biz's YouTube channel and a couple on AppSpy as well, if you're a little more gamer focused. George, we're going to scram.
Yeah.
Alicia, best of luck with tomorrow.
So lonely.
Don't fall on your face and die.
I'll try not to. I am wearing heels, so
So
suddenly
that is actually literally good advice.
that is good advice.
Fair enough. And
Break
thank
a
you
leg.
for watching up until now. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.